Okay.
Hello, folks. We are live, and I'm going to pull back our music volume a little bit here. All right. Hi, CS, and Pavel, could you give me a quick sound check, please?
Yeah, I hear just fine.
Okay, and I hear you, I see you, so we should be good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, all right. Good morning, folks, if you're joining us here stateside. Good afternoon and good evening if you're in any other part of the world. In fact, my guest today is in Bulgaria, so good afternoon and good evening, Pavel. Yeah, folks, welcome to Coded Live. This is our channel, as you know, where we code about different technologies throughout the week. We do CMSs on Monday, we do Unity on Tuesdays, Wednesdays are for React and UI, Thursdays, which is today, I like devoting some time to Xamarin and XAML technologies and .NET stuff, and Fridays we try doing a chat show. So thank you for joining us, and yeah, come and tune in whenever your time permits throughout the week. So my name is Sam Basu. I am a dev advocate at Progress Software. I mostly focus on .NET stuff. I know just a little bit of JavaScript to be dangerous. And with me, I'm actually super excited to have my guest today is my good friend, Pavel Pavlov. So Pavel, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello to everyone. My name is Pavel Pavlov, and I work at Telerik. I'm a developer at the Xamarin team, and today Sam will ask me some questions.
Yeah.
I hope I'll be able to answer them.
No, you don't have to. We can all find out. But let's hang on. Let me pull back the music a little bit more. It's a little too loud in my ears. All right. So for context, I've known Pavel for years and years, and when you see us coding, you kind of see, at least me, like I'm fluffy. You see me struggle through everything that I do. These are the folks. No, this way. So these are the folks who know their stuff inside out. So Pavel is part of our engineering team, and I'm actually scared to code in front of these guys because they make fun of me because I don't know anything. But anyways, I'll try, and we'll probably dig into some topics that are of relevance. So again, for context, we are focusing on Xamarin technologies. We actually have a tool set. At Progress Software, we make the whole Telerik line of products for all .NET developers, and this is something that Pavel and I feel very passionate about. We make a suite called Telerik UI for Xamarin, and this is really for all types of Xamarin development, whether you're doing like Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, or most importantly Xamarin Forms. We give you controls that you can ship easily and get your apps to be functioning faster, looking nicer. So Pavel works on the Xamarin team, and he knows a lot of stuff. So I thought I will get Pavel on to kind of dig into a little bit of what we did last release, and we actually pushed out a service pack and kind of some things that are on the minds for Xamarin developers as we move forward. So Pavel, you're based out of Sofia, right?
Yeah, we are currently working from home, but I also live in Sofia, so I'm in the same place.
As is everybody. We're all home, and I mean, we've had like lots of conversations. I think the software industry, we are fortunate to be able to do what we do from home, but I feel like a lot of folks are just getting comfortable. Like, I have been a remote employee for like years and years, but this is different. Like having kids at home, it's just different, and it's challenging. But we are trying to all innovate. We are trying to get the hang of it. Like what you do, like core, like product development, that is a lot of collaboration between your team members. So how are you folks doing?
We are doing just fine because if we have to talk to each other inside the team, we are not limited by anything. So we have internal chat systems, we have video conversations, and we can do just fine.
Yeah, yeah. And then that has been... Yeah, no, go on, sorry.
The only downside is that we're missing the personal contact, but I believe that's something that we have to adapt to.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully by the end of this year we can kind of start turning a corner. Yes, and we all miss the in-person things so much. Like just walking over to somebody, having a chat, like having a cup of coffee with someone. Just yeah, we just miss that so much. But like I particularly am fond of how this team, like your team, has worked, because to me, like a lot of different aspects of software development are easier to get done from home remotely, but like core product development where it's so much of collaboration, I'm just so impressed to see that like we are doing release after release without missing a beat. So that speaks volumes to how all of you collaborate. So thank you for what you do. And how long have you been living in Sofia?
If we include and count the years that I was studying here, it's becoming something like 11 years now.
Oh, nice. And what about before? Are you born and brought up in Bulgaria?
My family, we did some traveling, and we switched places where we lived several times. So I was born in one town, then some years I was going to school in the other town, and then we switched again, and this is probably the fourth town I live in.
Yeah.
And for the moment I plan not to move anymore. But as we all know, it's something that's kind of temporary, because if we not we, but if there are any obstacles or if things change that much, I'm not afraid to switch places one more time.
Right. No, and for what it's worth, like I absolutely love Sofia. It's one of my favorite cities in all of Europe. I've obviously been there a lot. Since we go there to work with our engineering teams, we host conferences. I absolutely love Sofia for what it is. So, okay, enough chit chat. Let's get down to tech stuff. So, yeah, like I said, folks, Pavel is part of our engineering team. He does a lot of the magic the team does to put together release after release, and we try to empower Xamarin developers to be able to have polished UI, performant UI that you can just drag and drop and put in your apps and be productive. So I want to dig into a little bit of what we did, but before that, let's talk about something that I think many mobile developers will care about. So again, if we are wanting to go cross-platform, I mean, iOS and Android are the big platforms to support. And I have heard you, Pavel, talk about Android X, or I also hear people talk about Android 10. So can you tell me a little bit more as to like when is this coming? Because this is not out yet, right?
At least in our product, in the Xamarin Forums product, it is not yet out. It is not released, but we are ready to start testing all the changes that we have to make. And yes, maybe in the near future we will be able to release the Android X support.
Now, like if I just had an Android phone, is Android X out or Android 10 out or not yet?
The updates, yes. If you have a Google supported phone, most probably by now you'll be able to update to the new OS version. But the controls that developers are using to build applications are requiring some additional efforts to support that OS. And we are trying to implement those changes that are needed, and soon they will be available to the developers.
Okay. That's good to know. So I was actually looking around, and like on Xamarin blogs, I found July 6th. So this is actually very new. So our good friend James Montemagno, who's a principal PM on the Xamarin team at Microsoft, he put together a quick article on what to expect. And so how is it said? Is it Android X or is it Android 10?
I have also encountered it like those two terms, and they are using interchangeably.
So it's the same thing. They're just using it interchangeably. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this is not just like a version of the OS. This has to do with the APIs as well. So I think what James is saying, like August 3rd, 2020, new apps must target Android 10. So along with the OS, is this like a big API change for Android?
Yes, and this comes from Google. In the past, they have created the Android support libraries to, as I understand it, to fix some limitations and to provide backwards compatibility for the APIs. But since this platform grew so much and they realized that they can do a better job with the implementation of the support libraries, and now they are switching all the new development to the package called Android X. It basically improves the discoverability of the APIs that developers need to use. And as I understand, the Android support libraries are no longer developed, and all the new features are coming just into the Android X. And that's why they will require all new applications to target the newest OS version and respectively use the newest APIs and Android support packages.
Okay, so this is a little different to what like I'm used to. I do much more iOS. So are you saying like the API support packages are different from the OS itself moving forward, or are they trying to combine it?
They are, yes, the phones themselves are updated with the new version of the OS. And the SDKs are, of course, separate. But to target the latest OS, you have to use the latest SDKs.
All right. Got you. And I think that's what James is giving us a timeline here. So by August 3rd, new apps must target Android 10. November 2nd, all apps and app updates must target Android 10. So like this is like if you are going to run on Android X, I mean, you can always go back and target older OSs, right?
Yeah.
And looks like there's a compile target obviously in Visual Studio, the target. So this one is about the API level, and this one is about the Android version itself. And there's like API level 29, which like I guess that is what they're calling Android 10.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. So you said like some things are different, like for a library like ours, Telerik UI for Xamarin. What is it that we are having to change or look into changing?
So some of our components are built natively. This means that they are implemented on Java. And if you take a look at the infrastructure of the Xamarin Forms platform, and you have Java code, and then you have some wrappers that translate that code into C#. And then we are using those wrappers to create the Xamarin Forms components. That's the whole picture. And now the change comes from Google, which means that we have to change our Java code. And then we have to update our wrappers, Android wrappers. and then we have to update the Xamarin Forms components as well. So the changes are, let's say, cosmetic, but they have to be done.
Sure.
Because as we talk about the APIs and with version 29 and the APIs with version 28, I believe, the previous one, yes. They are identical as API and functionality, and the only change is the namespaces. On that page, I believe you shared it, where the Android X is described.
Yeah.
Google have provided mappings for all the classes and the new namespaces.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And basically, the change that we have to do in our Java code is to use the new namespaces.
I see.
This will allow us to continue using the API level 29 and above.
Right. Okay. So like this sounds like more like a native layer change, obviously, and that's what we need to update to make sure. I mean, hopefully there are not like huge breaking changes, and it's just a namespace change and just updating the Java code.
Yes. At this point, yes, there are no breaking changes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So, I mean, if folks are in the chat room or watching this later on, if anybody's using Telerik UI for Xamarin, or for that matter any other tool set, I think this is very common. So what you see is us building almost everything that we can native, that is truly native. So you have a lot of native iOS and Android controls that are written in their respective platforms, which is what Pavel is talking about. And then we also have some controls that are built with Skia Sharp, where we paint pixels essentially. So those don't need to be updated, right? If you're using Skia.
Yes, no changes are required there.
Okay. All right. So yeah, hopefully the guidance from Google on the mappings is good, and it's not a painful update. But then we would like to have developers like support older things, right? So how would that work out? If you update the Java bits, you'll have to maintain the older versions, right?
Yes, we have tested on the Xamarin Forums site. We have built our demo applications to target the latest APIs, but they can also be deployed to devices which are not yet upgraded to the latest OS version.
Oh, so like Android will do the mapping themselves if it's like a newer thing, but it's using older APIs?
Yes, that's basically how the APIs are working.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, this is something that's kind of top of mind for lots of people. James wrote it up, so I'm sure we'll hear more about it by the time August and November rolls around. So yeah, so keep us updated. If you're using things for Android, just keep an eye out on Android X. Oh, hey, in the chat room I see our good friend Sultan Burnham. Good to see you. Good to see you. Let's see what I can do. I can do rainbows for you. Good to see you, man. So yeah, we're talking about native mobile stuff today, and some of the challenges where iOS and Android change things under our footing, and we have to update. So it's a challenge. Like I mean, over the years, like, have you seen like really bad iOS or Android releases where we had to update a lot in terms of like native code?
Yes. On the Android side, there were a couple of those releases, but at the end of the day, we managed to do what's necessary for the applications to be running.
Yeah, and that's the reality. Like for anytime we build cross-platform solutions, anytime there's an abstraction, and this is something like Xamarin team in particular, they've been dealing with it for the last like 6 years. They have to have like 0-day support for the latest iOS APIs and Android APIs as those things evolve. So it's never easy. Okay, so yeah, folks, if you're targeting Android and if you're using a library that has dependencies on native layers, so keep an eye out on Android X. I'm sure we will hear a lot more about it. If you're using Telerik bits, we are, as you heard from Pavel, we are actively looking to make sure we can make this as seamless as possible. So, all right, good to know. Now, there are a few more things I want to ask and kind of dive into because I saw this blog post. So folks, if you head out to like Telerik blogs, that's where I write all of my content and the team writes all of their stuff. Some of it is specific to our controls, but a lot of it is generic .NET and JavaScript code and things that developers should know. But we do like 3 major releases every year. We do R1, R2, and R3. R2 is kind of in the middle of the year. We did one in May. And then in between major releases, we do service pack updates. So the first service pack update for R2 went out. And Pavel, I really like this post that you wrote up. So again, folks, if you stumble upon this, this is the Pavel that we're talking about. This is the man, this distinguished engineer who makes things happen. So looks like a lot of stuff we put in. PDF viewers, these are always important for enterprises. Manipulating and viewing PDF documents. Looks like we give folks a way to change the viewport, like the X, Y, and like how much of the document you're looking at programmatically, which is good. Lots and lots of fixes for Xamarin controls all over the board. Calendars, list view, I mean, it's a long list. And I like that, like every release we put in so much of bug fixes, so much of little increments that make developer lives that much easier. So yeah, if you are using Telerik UI for Xamarin, go ahead and hit update on the NuGet package so you get the latest bits and you see what we're doing. But this little section here caught my interest, and this is mobile Blazor bindings. So if you had joined me folks here in the chat room on the last few weeks, like we dove into mobile Blazor bindings quite a bit. So again, if you are new, so I will bring this up. Let's see, is this the one? Yeah. So this is entirely experimental for now from Microsoft. So essentially, if you are doing Blazor, that's obviously your C# front and back. Starting from like this May after Build Conference, it is fully supported on WebAssembly. So you're able to write C# really for the server side and client side. Client side, it runs on WebAssembly, and it's beautiful, just like JavaScript. So it lets you write pure C#. But this is an approach where you get to write Blazor syntax, not quite like WebAssembly. This has got nothing to do with how the web works, but you're able to write web code towards native cross-platform apps, and it's Xamarin Forms under the covers. Did I say all of that right, Pavel?
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's
this is
what I'm familiar with also.
Yeah. And so I'll be honest, I was a little hesitant about this. Like, again, like coming from a heavy XAML background, which you and me share, this looks different, right? So I was hesitant, but I think we just need to open our minds. Hey, our good friend Ed Charbonneau is here. Blazor 3 times. Yeah, good to see you. So folks, if you are new here, it's hard to not know Ed if you are into Blazor land. Ed is our colleague. He has devoted his life to Blazor. He is so invested. Like if tomorrow Microsoft says, we're done with Blazor, I'm sure Ed is just going to take it upon himself and just run it himself. He just loves the framework so much, and there is plenty to be excited about. This is really fun stuff. This one we played around a little bit. I mean, there are some nice walkthroughs that they provided, like how you build a Hello World app. Right now, the template is not quite baked into Visual Studio, so you kind of have to do it command line first, and it works. And then we also built like a little sample app where you bring in components, and those are little things that you just plant, and it renders Xamarin Forms UI under the covers, but you are doing it from a Blazor and web code perspective, and you can style with CSS, so it feels very different. So, like Pavel, like, am I right to say like this may not be for every like XAML developer? Like, if you like XAML, you can keep doing XAML, but this is kind of opening the funnel so that the web guys can come on and do Xamarin, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is part of the Xamarin Forms efforts to bring more web developers into the platform. If we want to use XAML and C#, we can continue to do so.
Yep.
That is a part which will not be affected by any means from Xamarin Forms and Blazor mobile bindings.
Yeah, and like Blazor mobile bindings is essentially using Xamarin Forms under the covers. One more thing that, Pavel, I don't know if you noticed, and we will maybe next week we can dive into this. There is one other way that they're thinking about. Let me see if I can pull it up. I thought I had it bookmarked. Yeah, this one. So Xamarin Forms is evolving into MAUI, which is for next year for .NET 6. And there is another way of rendering the UI. So again, just for more flexibility, we are used to an MVVM pattern for XAML and C#. This is MVU. There's actually an open source project called Comet. So look that up. This is by Lancy, who works on the Xamarin team. This is very much like React Native almost, and this is sort of like one-way data binding from the model down to the view, and you essentially push down updates, and it's very fast, and this is quite fascinating to see how like you can do the same kind of visual tree that we do in Xamarin Forms, except you're doing it through C#, just plain C#. So you're kind of declaratively using C# to render your UI. So this is something I want to play around more. It's just a little verbose, but it really has a lot of, I guess, draw if you are coming from a web background in particular. So yeah, lots of options are starting to light up for Xamarin Forms. So let's dig into this one a little bit more, the mobile Blazor bindings. Now, what is nice is, if I can go back up to our docs, not Microsoft Docs, docs.telerik.com, and if I go into Xamarin Forms, so we heard the interest loud and clear, and right here we have Xamarin mobile Blazor bindings. So this is essentially us just wrapping up the things we do and letting you render the same UI controls through Blazor. Is that right, Pavel?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So I want to dive into this one a little bit more because I think I wrote some code, and then Pavel, you tell me if like what the team did it's markedly different. So let me pull up Visual Studio. Maybe this one. Are you able to follow the stream, Pavel? You're seeing what I'm showing on the screen, right?
Actually, no. I have some difficulties.
Oh, you
right now
can't log into Twitch?
I am logged in, but the stream... Oh, okay. It came up.
Okay.
So
good.
I can now see what you're typing.
Yes. It might be on a little bit of a delay, but you can at least see. So let's see. What did we do? Okay, so this one was a generic project. So I think what I did here was, if you go into this walkthrough of how you build your first app, they essentially walk you through installing. Let me make this a little bigger. So essentially you get a new template. This is still command line because it's not experimental. This is not baked in yet. So you get the template and then you say .NET new and you use that mobile Blazor bindings template and you say whatever this project is. And when you are done, it essentially scaffolds a project which is pretty much exactly the same as a Xamarin Forms project. It's just the startup is a little different, and it's all through Blazor. So let me show you this. So in this solution, there is nothing spectacular going on. So this is the Blazor mobile solution. So you will get a regular .NET standard library, which is your shared code, and then you get platform-specific libraries for like iOS or Android or other things that you might be supporting. And what is different here is a couple of things. Let's see. There's an imports razor, which essentially just brings in all of the mobile Blazor bindings things, and you can see that I'm bringing in Telerik Xamarin Forms Blazor because we did write, how many of do we have now? Like 7 or so controls?
Yeah, something like
1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Yeah, so all of these controls are purely Xamarin Forms controls for us, but we are giving you a way for experimentally just trying to render them through Blazor mobile bindings. So I'm bringing that in, and so that's our imports, and then hello world.razor. So this is kind of your, this replaces your main page .xaml essentially if you are used to XAML and C#. The one other thing, I don't know if you noticed this, Pavel, the app.cs, like the way the application starts up, is also different. And maybe this is something that the Xamarin team will look forward to maybe adopting. Because I mean, what looks similar is like on your app start, like you have these 3 events, like you got your on start, on sleep, and on resume, but we don't say like main page equals this starting page. We don't new up the navigation thing. Instead, we kind of do what ASP.NET does, which is you start with a default hosting provider and you start building a pipeline of things that you use. So this one is pointing the main page to a content page, but then it's adding these components for things you want to bring in as components. So let me see if I can make this run. This one was hello world, so let me actually go back and I'm going to change this. No, I actually have it right here, so let me uncomment that line of code and bring this in. So this one is still using hello world, so it's going to come to hello world, and this one here is a mix of a little bit of XAML-ish code and some C# code, right? So this is where we are building up the visual tree. So you'll see the similar like content view that you're used to in Xamarin Forms. You could do a style sheet, and then we have stack layouts. And this one here, so Pavel, this is where I started. So before we released it, I was playing around with things, and Microsoft has some guidance on what they are wanting you to do. So if I go back to the docs here, if I look at user interface now, custom components. So they have a little bit of guidance, which is very little. Like here's how you wrap Xamarin Forms controls into being Blazor controls, right? So does this look familiar to you? Like, is this kind of what you had to do? So they are asking you to create a Razor file and then do the element handlers so you can expose the properties of the Xamarin Forms control and the events up to Blazor. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, that's what we're doing, and basically all the functionalities, all the APIs that are currently available in the Xamarin Forms components, they will be available through the bindings to the Blazor syntax.
Okay. Let me make sure my audio is still good. Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into this one a little bit more. So here's what I did, and I don't think we have the calendar and the numeric input in our list, do we? Let me go back and check. No, we don't. So this will look very childish, but essentially, like, I'll show you what I did. So I took the rad numeric input and take a look at my dependencies here. So I am actually bringing in Xamarin Forms, I'm bringing in Xamarin Essentials, and I'm actually bringing in all of Telerik UI for Xamarin, which is obviously an overkill, but I'm just trying to show what I did. So I have the whole library, and then I was able to bring in Telerik Xamarin Forms input, and then for the rad numeric input, essentially you have to do two things. There's a handle registry, and you have to expose that. And let's see, I'm newing up exactly the rad numeric input UI control that we want. And then on the render attributes thing, I'm just picking up like one property that the input control had that was like a stepper property, and I'm publishing that. And then it has an input handler, which I don't understand all of the code here, but I mean, this is straight up from Microsoft on how you expose like events and properties. So essentially, whatever attributes that come in, you capture them and you cast them to exactly the property that your UI control is using. Is that, am I saying this right, Pavel? Like the way they want you to expose the properties?
Yes, that's basically how every binding should be working. And while I'm not directly involved into creating these bindings, I believe this is how my colleagues are exposing all the APIs that are available.
Yeah, and it's got to be a little bit of like tedious code, because essentially like for every property and every event handler, you have to have these wrappers that expose it. So I hope I did that right. And then for the stepper, I'm doing a little bit of like C# code here, stepping by 20. So let's see if this will actually run. I haven't opened this project in a while, so hopefully it builds. Just thinking. Yeah, it builds. So you see my iOS simulator come up. Just thinking. There you go. So yeah, of course, I'm using a trial version here. That's fine. There you go. So obviously the formatting looks weird because I have not done any spacing or margin, but you get the idea here. So that label is the hello world. This rad calendar, this is purely a Xamarin Forms control, but we are rendering it through like the Blazor bindings, and then the rad numeric input here. So essentially the UI control becomes a component, right? So we can pass properties into it, which is where like the stepper thing comes in. So if this is just an input stepper, so if I do plus, you can see that it increments by 20, because that's what my stepper value is. So this is kind of what I did before we actually came out and said, no, we will try to roll it out for as many controls as we can. So this is kind of what I know on how to make it work, but this is just like one property obviously I'm exposing. When we do it, it's really all the properties that we can expose. So let me go back, because I think in your post, Pavel, you mentioned there was like one new thing we did. So I want to try that. And I also ran into some issues maybe rendering some of the older ones, so I will try to see while I have you here to see what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so now I changed my component from hello world to this one here. So this one is using just a Razor view. And what do I have here? I have, so now this one here, notice that I'm actually not using the whole Telerik UI for Xamarin, because now we have the input handlers kind of built in. The wrappers are kind of built in with what we did. So now we're using this other NuGet package called Telerik UI for Xamarin.blazor.trial. Again, this is just out on NuGet. You can download it from the product page if you want. But I think this is, so does this NuGet just have the wrappers for the controls that we are doing? Do you know, Pavel?
Yes, they contain the assemblies that we built in order to be able to use them in this project with Blazor.
Okay. All right, so here's where you can see that I was trying around a few things. So this one was the rad button. So that's a Telerik button, and we are rendering it through the Blazor bindings. So let me see if this one will actually work. Start. Okay, so I think this is what where we stopped, like the last stream where we were playing around with this. So that's a button. That's an iOS button. Obviously, it's looking like it's full screen, so we can do that. We can put it in like other containers and make it look like a button. But it works for the most part. Now let me see, what did we do different? So. Maybe I took that off, so let me bring that back, your post.
Basically what we did is to provide more controls, components, which can be used through the bindings. We just extend the number of the controls that currently can be used with Blazor.
Okay. Hang on, why is my network not coming up? So can I not go to blogs?
Yeah, I also cannot see your current screen, but I'm not sure if it's my network.
So are you looking at the stream?
I am looking it, but it froze a while ago.
That could be your network, because I am seeing my screen and my stream. So maybe just give it a refresh, see if that works. So let me go back here. I think this expander thing is new.
Yeah, that's the latest component that we wrapped.
Okay, let me take a look at what the expander does, because that's just it's a container control, right? So it will it can hold things and then you can collapse and expand, right?
Yeah, it basically saves up space on the screen.
Yeah. So it has collapsed and expanded states. The headers are customizable. You can do animations as you expand or collapse. Border styling, you can theme it, of course. Let's take a look. This is like, if you were doing XAML and C#, this is what you will do. So essentially, this is again too small, so I might try bumping it up. So this is the XAML way of doing it. So essentially, we instantiate the RAD expander, and then we put whatever we want inside of it. So there's a content placeholder essentially that holds everything, right? And then that's the thing that you can expand and collapse, and then you can put whatever you want inside of it. Okay, so that's the functionality, and it obviously has some features like you can control the header, like what it looks like. You could control the animation, you could control the border styling. Yeah, okay. So if we were to do the same thing from Blazor, what would that look like? So Pavel, since I have you here, can I complain to you? And I mean, I cannot complain. I should go and fix things. I think we can do better with our documentation, especially for the Blazor bindings. Like we have it good, but I think we can do a little bit more on like how how people render these things. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. We just created this page to showcase that we are working on creating those bindings.
Yep.
And we tried to point the clients to whatever Microsoft has as documentation and getting started experience. And we tried to focus only on our part, which is how to visualize our components.
Yep.
But your feedback is welcome, and we will consider it.
Yeah, no, I mean, this sounds so bad. Like, who am I to complain when I can fix things myself? So yeah, I will definitely help. I mean, the only thing I see is like we have like examples for just like a couple of controls. I would like to see like more examples on how we do things. Because one of the things that really tripped me up, let's see, this is the loading indicator. So in here. And this may be just because of the way I have the project here. So I have the full Telerik UI for Xamarin, right? I have the XAML bits inside of here. So if I simply said like rad button, it actually gets a little confused. So I had to like fully say that this is the Blazor rad button that I want, because I think otherwise it got a little confused for me. But let's try the new expander. All right, and okay, so everything is commented out. Now, what did I do wrong? Hang on. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. So come out here, there. Now everything is commented out. Why is it complaining? Okay, there we go. So if I do, if I can type today. Okay, so this is where all of the Blazor wrappers come in, right? So I have the grid layout. Oh, you know what? I don't have the latest bits. Aha. Because this was like the service pack release. I don't think I have that. So can I just upgrade this NuGet package?
I believe yes, the NuGet packages should be available to download.
Yeah.
I can see that you have set up our NuGet server.
Yeah. So again, I mean, folks, if anybody is watching this later on, so essentially what you have to do is, I mean, you can get the DLLs yourself, but this is just so much easier. So you go into your Visual Studio, same for Windows versus VS for Mac. So in my NuGet and in my sources, you'll see that I'm pointing to NuGet.org, which is where you get all of the Microsoft NuGet packages, and then you can set up like a local feed. I've had sometimes like a downloads directory, but then this is my Telerik NuGet feed. So this points to nuget.telerik.com, and it asks you for your authentication just one time, and then beyond that it's fine. So you can always go and get the latest bits from there. You can go backwards if you have like things to support you want to go back, which I don't recommend, but you can if you have to. So you can do that. So looks like Blazor trial is up to date. So I have the latest bits here. So that's too big. Okay, so now let's see what I can see. So if I do Telerik.Xamarin Forms Blazor. Okay, so I see busy content. Oh, this is the busy indicator. Rad busy indicator. Oh, rad expanded. There you go. Yay! I see stuff. That's good. Okay, rad expander.
Yay.
And I close it right there. So what was it? I'll have to look up the docs here.
You have to set
the content, right?
Content property, yes, and you have.
Yeah. Now
you have other APIs which are purely for customization, but for the demos, it's okay.
Yeah. Now I'm a professional software developer, so the way I write code is copy and paste. So let me just see. So I have to have a rad expander.content. Okay. So I'll have to go back in the rad expander. Oh, right here it shows up. Blazor primitives expander content. Okay. And in here I can do whatever, right? I can do a label.
You can do a label, you can do a layout, you can do basically any view.
Okay, so I got that, and just that should run, right? Hopefully.
You can also set the header property of the expander, so we can see where it's placed.
Is that a separate property?
Yes, just like the content, you can set header.
Oops, sorry, I cannot type today. Okay, expander header. And can that also take anything?
Yeah. And let me just
see the IntelliSense, like Visual Studio, since this is all very new, Visual Studio trips up sometimes between giving you like XAML IntelliSense and Blazor IntelliSense, which I mean it's getting confused because I have both ways in the same project. So all right.
Did you accept it?
Yeah, no, I got it. Just a label here. So let's see if this will run actually. Okay, it built. Oh, it's complaining. Does not have a property matching child content. Oh, so I cannot just like directly put a label inside? That's interesting.
Okay, you can try to wrap it in a layout, but
yeah. You know, actually, this is a good segue because I'll ask you something about the child content because I think some of these things get tripped up. So I think the stack layout should give it a child content, maybe. Let's see.
And
no, okay.
I'm just checking the type of the other property in the header.
Oh, so maybe let's not do the header right away. Let's just get the basic thing to work.
Yeah, one by one.
Yeah, one by one. By the way, Pavel, I appreciate you spending time because I know it's like the end of the day for you. You've had a long day and you're still coding and you're looking at stuff here with me, so I appreciate it.
It's okay. I enjoy it.
Okay, so I still have issues. It's not liking the way we're defining the child content. Okay, I can copy and paste some stuff. Let's see, what was this? This is the demo. See, I don't want to copy from here because this actually has like XAML stuff, but again, none of this should not make it work. I have the content and inside of it I have a stack layout and I closed everything, right? That's where my content stays. Does anything jump at you, like what might be wrong?
The property that Visual Studio is reporting is, I believe it's not defined in the RAT expander. It's not part of the RAT expander API, or at least on the Xamarin Forms part. And it was child. What was the name of the property?
Child content.
Child content.
Yeah, let me run this again. And let me actually debug. So these are the things where I also want to help. Like we should, like since we released a new thing, we should actually have more documentation on what these things might be that we can get tripped up. Okay, so
yes, there is another aspect, and we have limited setup on all our machines, even the test ones, and I believe your setup is different. So when we test the products, especially the new ones and the experimental ones, it's better to test them on different setups, different machines, so to smooth out such errors and hiccups.
Yeah. So I don't know what this one might be. So we will have to maybe look into this a little bit more, Pavel.
Yes, of course. Can you send me the error?
Yeah, sure.
I saw the stack trace, and we can use it to see what exactly is going on.
Sure. Okay, let's try out a few more things because I think I was getting a little tripped up. So let me show you while we have it, while I have you here. So I'm going to comment this one out. So if I just do things like bring in the rad busy indicator. So the is busy property is true, so we should just see an indicator. So let's try that. I think there's something going on with the way like the child controls are being rendered or like figured out in the tree itself, because like you see the little busy indicator. I mean, it's small. I mean, I can make it big, but I mean, you see it, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, that's the busy indicator, and obviously, it comes with like a dozen or so different types of indicators. You can change the animation properties. Essentially, this is busy flag tells you whether it is to be shown, or we can hide it and then you show your actual content. But the moment I put this inside of anything, it gets confused. So if I put this inside of a stack layout, now hang on 1 second, let me see if, because Blazor does define stack layout in the same way, so it's not like my stack layout is any different. So like if I just put it in a stack layout, do you think it should work? Because I mean, I'm just giving it just one child inside my content view. Right?
It should be working, yes. I expect it to be as the same as
yeah, it should be the same.
The rad busy indicator on its own.
Yep. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, so you see that I get a blank screen. So it's just the way probably we are setting the child control, and or the way the Blazor bindings is picking it up is not right somewhere.
Right now you can try to set a fixed size to the busy indicator, because I'm not sure how the stack layout measures its children. I'm not sure if the logic is changed in any way, and if this is the exact same stack layout in Xamarin, like we have in Xamarin Forms.
Right.
But you should be able to set width or required width.
Width request or requested width, yeah.
Yeah, on the busy indicator itself.
All right.
And also the same can be set for the height.
So if I do a width request, I can do 200, and I can do a height request of 200, let's say. All right. Now the thing is, like, I don't know if the stack layout will honor that, because I mean there are multiple things we are dealing with here, right? I mean, does the Blazor wrapper honor that, or is it a underlying issue with how like Xamarin Forms is rendering it?
Yeah, that's interesting, and
yes,
I expect it to be working, but
I still get nothing.
Okay, that's definitely something that we should look into it.
Yeah.
And I will ask my colleagues to try it out on their setup.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're all one team. I'm happy to help try to debug what's going on. It could be something that I'm doing wrong, because like in this project, I do have the full Xamarin Forms, but I didn't know that that would trip it up so much. See, it did not, maybe 200 is too small, because it still looks like the same small indicator that I had.
It looks more like it doesn't respect those values.
It does not respect that. Okay, so definitely things to learn, but I like the fact that we are at least looking ahead, and we are trying to provide new ways for developers to be rendering our controls. Let's see if I can get something else to work. So comment this one out. The rad border is also something I think I had issues with. So let me try this. So a rad border, folks, is just what it sounds like. It's a border, but you can put whatever you want inside of it. So here is the rad border. What is it complaining about? Okay, now it's gone. So rad border color is red. We give it a corner radius so it kind of looks a little rounded, and then we have a label inside. So let's see if this will actually work. Yeah, I think this is what I was encountering. Do you see my screen? Do you see the simulator, Pavel?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so it is rendering, but it just doesn't recognize that there is like a child thing inside of it. So it doesn't do the rounding.
Yeah, I see. Yes.
Yeah, so this could be something that is wrong with my setup because I was trying around like different controls that we have through the Blazor bindings. Some of them like I can get them to work right away, like the rad button. What else did I do? The busy indicator works. Then I was also trying. Hang on, let me go back.
Yes, the rad button is just the Xamarin Forms button, which we extended with some properties.
And I love that. I love that we can do so much with just a button. Like you can change the background image, you can change the rounding, you can change everything about the button. So I love that. Now, is there any differences, like you were pointing out, like so the button is a Xamarin Forms button. What about the other ones? Are any of these things Skia?
The border is a component which uses the native APIs to draw the border. The busy indicator is purely Skia.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what I thought. The busy indicator is Skia.
Yes, and maybe... Yes, we definitely should have a look into the nesting problem that we see now.
Right.
And yeah, we can see it's not spread across only a certain type of components.
Yeah,
it affects several types.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint unless we look through stack traces, because like could be how Xamarin is looking at this, could be how Blazor wrappers are looking at the child controls, but I cannot nest, I cannot stack things. And I love the fact that we have a list view, because that is really a really heavy control that has lots and lots of features. So I'll be very interested in like how many of these features. Do you know if like all of the features for every one of these controls is exposed through Blazor?
Yes, I believe all of them are exposed.
Nice.
And the next big component that we are trying now to migrate is the grid component, data grid.
Oh, that's a big one.
And yes, I believe with the next release we'll have this list extended.
Cool. All right, so looks like, Pavel, maybe I need to get you or somebody else from the team back on stream sometimes, because we can fix this behind the scenes, but I would much rather try to go through the struggle myself and see what did I do wrong and fix it that way. So yeah, this was great, because I mean I can actually talk to an engineer who knows his stuff inside out and see how the stupid me is messing things up. So
it maybe it's not you, but if you cannot do it, that's on us, because we need to make sure that all the developers, no matter their experience, can get started with our components, even no matter what. I mean, we should have provided, as you pointed out, better documentation and yeah, we will be improving on that matter.
We'll work on this together, and we'll write up docs. Because I think like every one of these controls is different enough that we should have examples for each control. Like I really like the example for the rad busy indicator, because it is detailed. It says use this using primitive, then here's how you render the rad busy indicator, and then go into your code behind if you wanted to, and I think it just toggles the is busy property. Yes, there's a button that toggles it from is busy to not busy, and then it shows you something like there's a piece of text here that says this is the content that you see when the rad busy indicator is not busy. So this is great for the rad busy indicator. I just want to see this for every control, so I know exactly how to render those things.
Yes, this is how we have structured the documentations for the Xamarin Forms components, and we just copied in the mobile bindings for Blazor. But I believe that we will be able to provide additional articles for every component. So when you start up, you will not rely only on one snippet to make your application, or to just start up with our components.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's how all of the other documentation for our Xamarin UI is structured. So these are just very early days, completely experimental. We just want to get feedback to see if people are using Blazor bindings to render their Xamarin Forms UI and how you're doing it. And we are trying to provide ways where you can render our controls through that. So Pavel, I know it's getting late for you. I don't know if you have had dinner yet, but thank you so much for spending an hour with me. The Android X stuff was definitely something to look forward to or look into and see what's going on as that nears the date where things need to move over. And definitely lots of things happening. We pushed out a service pack, and the Blazor mobile bindings are definitely exciting. So thank you, Pavel, a lot. Thank you so much from me and Pavel. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we shall see you next time on the stream. All right, cool. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.